We are back another week. We're halfway through the season. We got Petrie back with me um, as a permanent member. Thanks for joining us, man. That was
Yeah, dude.
fun last time, and we're glad that we're going to get like 6 more weeks out of you. So awesome.
Yeah, dude. I love doing it. It's great to have an opportunity to talk about Canes football. A lot of us get to tweet whatever we want to tweet, but it's nice
Yeah.
to be on a platform and actually getting got some engagement from the last time we did the show. So it's
Oh,
really
nice.
cool that people are watching and people are paying attention, and
Yeah.
hopefully we get to talk some good Canes football throughout the rest of the season as well.
Yeah. Absolutely, man. Gino. I think Gino will be back next week, and it'll be a trio of us. So all is well in the about the fans world. So let's get into this Miami versus Virginia Tech game. Looking at my notes, the first thing we want to talk about is the tale of two halves. Um, I was very content after the first half. I was texting people. Uh, there's a few tweets on my timeline. Everything looked good. Like TBD was on the money. I think he was 15 for 21, over 200 yards, 2 touchdowns by halftime. Um, our defense had some big plays. We were getting stops. 17-0. Looked like we were rolling, man. It's. I mean, obviously Virginia Tech isn't a very good team, but felt like we had kind of pulled everything together, right? And then the second half was exactly the opposite. We get outscored 14-3. Can't really move the ball at all, and just some kind of boneheaded coaching decisions. Lots of penalties. It just ugly, 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 ugly. We were talking a little bit before we went live, and you had pointed out that kind of lucky to even win this game. But go ahead and give me your rundown, man. Your thoughts about the idea of how we looked in the first half compared to the second half.
Yeah, I think that does say it perfectly. Is a tale of two halves. We were rolling at halftime. It was 17-0, and we were having that last little drive right before halftime. I really thought they should have tried to make a greater effort to at least try to get three there, take a 20-point lead into halftime. You're getting the ball back. You're feeling really good. It didn't work out, but that moment right there almost felt kind of like a precursor to the rest of the game. It was like,
Yeah.
okay, well, they couldn't make that little push to at least get three more little measly points on the board.
Yep.
And then it was the story of the second half, inability to move the football, and penalties. Really just unbelievable how many times we shot ourselves in the foot. Yes, a couple of them were ticky-tack penalties that you would say, maybe I would have let that one go. But you don't get penalized almost 20 times in one game,
Yeah.
and they're
Yeah.
not mostly valid.
Yeah. What was the stat that you told me before we went live?
Yeah, actually, I looked up the penalty yards. We had 144 penalty yards given up, and Virginia Tech had 157 yards passing. Like,
That's
how do you have
absurd.
almost as many penalty yards as they had passing? It feels like one of those stats that's just like it's not real.
Yeah, that is us doing the heavy lifting for them, right? Uh,
Yeah.
it's just absurd. Like the thing that was frustrating about this game for me was that um, I felt good in the first half. It was very apparent that Virginia Tech was not a good team from the get go, right? Like at no point during this game did Virginia Tech look like an even an above average or middling team in the ACC, at least in my opinion. I felt fine about the first half because we were cruising, very little resistance, just kind of looked like we were taking care of business. But then to have a second half like that against a really bad team and kind of get pushed around, look undisciplined, look unable to do anything, there's cause for concern there. And
Well,
maybe go ahead.
so no, so here's the thing. So good thing we did start out quickly in the first half and jumped
Yeah.
ahead by 17 because they didn't do anything when we got the ball to start the third quarter. We got the ball to start the third quarter and we scored 3 points in the second half. You see what I mean? Like that's unbelievable. You mentioned in the first half, Tyler Van Dyke had 2 touchdowns and was 15 of 21, so just south of 75%. He finishes the game, no interceptions, thankfully for that, but still 2 touchdowns, which means obviously none in the second half. And he finished just north of 60% completion. So that means there was a substantially worse second half played. But, and here's where I'm going with this, is that it's the ineffectiveness of the run game. Virginia Tech made the adjustments. They realized Miami is not moving the ball on the ground. Therefore, we have to throw the ball. And so they make the adjustments, make Tyler Van Dyke do some more creative stuff and put him in some difficult positions. He had a much worse second half than he had a first half.
Yeah.
Overall stat sheet, the game looked nice. But once Virginia Tech realizes Miami's not running the football well, it's easier to take away the passing game.
Yeah, I think our offensive line struggled in, multi-dimensionally. I mean, the pass protection was fairly decent. I didn't love the run blocking and the false starts, man.
Unbelievable.
I mean, I lost count of how many false starts we had. I think it was somewhere north of 45. I'm just kidding. It was ridiculous, though. Like, yeah, we are I don't want to take blame away from, the second half that Van Dyke had, or the game that Gaddis called in the second half, because I think, there's legitimate red flags in both of those areas. But man, how hard is it to move the ball when you're kneecapping yourself 5 yards every other play? I mean, it changes your play call, right? I mean, 3rd and 7, or 2nd and 7 versus 2nd and 12, 2nd and 13, like that's a way different play call.
Vastly different, yeah.
And when it just keeps happening over and over and over and over again, like, I mean, it's
had a couple of decent runs that called back. Everybody was on Knighton's neck before the game about the turnover issue that he's had over the last several games, but he had a couple of very nice runs. The overall stat sheet doesn't look great because, again, some of those runs got called back. But he had a couple like 10, 12-yard runs that unfortunately did get called back.
Yeah. Yeah, and there was a number of unfortunate drops.
Ladson almost housed one, man.
Yeah, that was frustrating. And one thing I noticed, I have certainly been guilty of heaping or not heaping praise or confidence onto Will Mallory. He had a great game. The rest of the tight end room, man, I was not impressed with today. Jaleel Skinner dropped one. I mean, he got hit and it came out of his hands, but he dropped one over the middle that would have changed, a drive for us. Yeah. And then did you notice, let's see, it was on that last drive when we're trying to clock it, and, the 3rd and 2, TVD does the QB sneak, and Dominic Mammarelli blocks nobody. Like TVD could have picked up another 15, 20 yards.
Yeah.
Just some questionable moves by our other tight ends there.
I tried to give Skinner a pass on that one. He is young. Correct me if I'm wrong. I don't remember if he's redshirt or if he was like a true freshman. I don't know if he played. Was he in high school ball a year ago, right?
I'm pretty sure he's a true freshman, like 99%.
Yeah, I was going to say high school ball a year ago. And so, some of those are going to be tough catches, and he'll get there. He knows that. But, you would have loved him to have that catch. But I think we were up 13 at that point. So I'm sitting there going, we're up 13, true freshman, almost like a concussion ball, really. I might have let that one go too if it was myself. So I think we got a lot of lucky breaks. Virginia Tech, nice throw from the quarterback who didn't have very many. There was a walk-in touchdown that was dropped by Virginia Tech, and a first down opportunity missed by them, which it was on 3rd down, and then they ended up having to punt. I mean, they were moving the ball. Nobody was near the guy for 20 yards, and the guy just drops the football. So we got lucky breaks, and I think that we're fortunate to have won that game. At first, I was saying, hey, we're fortunate enough to be winning by as much as we're winning. Then we escape with 6 points. I say, okay, well, we're lucky to have won that game at all, period.
Yeah, and I certainly think from the way that we played in the second half, that is true. I mean, you had brought up the point before we were talking. I'll let you run with it. Is the early turnover that we had. So I mean, tell me what you were saying before we went live about the early turnover.
I mean, Virginia Tech opening drive, they were moving the football. That combined hit by, I think it was Ivy and then also Tay Williams, that forced the fumble, and he recovered it. That was a very they were deep in our they were deep on our side of the field,
Yeah.
and so that was a major play on the opening drive, steal momentum. The offensive players flip it into a touchdown, and you're sitting there going, okay, hey, we're 3 or 4. I think it was about 3 or 4 minutes into the game, and I'm sitting there going, okay, hey, maybe this is gonna be one of those,
Yeah.
I don't know, 38 or 42 to 10-ish, 17 kind of games. I'm thinking, hey, we're gonna really be doing this thing. Well,
That's what it felt like. Even at halftime, that's what it felt like.
I
I
saw
was
17 zip. I was like, okay, well, we'll probably win this one by about
yeah.
maybe 28 or 30 points.
Yep. So I want to talk about Colby Young. We touched on
Yes.
him last week a little bit. I was pulling up the box score just barely. So Colby Young was 9 receptions, 61 yards, and a touchdown. We had a good game from Will Mallory, good game from Brashard Smith as well. But to me, Colby Young was like a standout. I mean,
Yes.
he's a big dude. He's 6'4", 220. But he looks the part of wide receiver one on the field. So I wanted to just dwell a little bit on how big his emergence is for this team, for the wide receiver room. Man, he looks good. I mean, Petrie, tell your thoughts on Colby Young.
So Colby Young, you mentioned the touchdown, which of course, hey, points are what we're looking for. Obviously, touchdowns are great. He made on the opening drive that set up the Ladson touchdown. On the opening drive, he made a beautiful one-handed catch, spectacular catch, great focus. You love seeing that kind of stuff. Good hands, and so kept his focus. The defensive back was on him. He had to make a one. It wasn't like a showboaty one-handed catch. It was like he really had his left side tied up and snagged it as if it was a baseball. And beautiful catch, set up the Ladson touchdown. So huge catch for him, and then the eventual touchdown, which was a missile from Van Dyke. That was not an easy ball to catch. That was a rocket.
Yeah.
So Colby Young, very impressed. I'm very impressed, and I wish I had been watching him in practice in the preseason and week one, because he might have gotten in the game earlier than week 6. What week are we in? 6, right? So he would have been playing earlier than the last 2 weeks. I can tell you that.
It's kind of flummoxing. I just so Tennessee just went up 21-7 on Alabama. That's pretty crazy.
I see that. That's it. Hey, good game for them so far.
Yeah, and I want to talk a little bit about something we touched on last week, but I'll do that at the end of the show. Tennessee just reminds me every time they play, because of Josh Heupel, I think is how you say his name.
Yeah.
So, speaking of Colby Young, I'm so flummoxed about how this came about, because we talked live on the air last week. I had to Google who he was. I mean, I know not everyone did. I don't follow recruiting as much as I used to. It's just too much these days. But JUCO transfer from Lackawanna College. By no means was he. I mean, he had offers from Virginia Tech, Tennessee, Florida State. So it's not like he's totally unknown. Not like he's a scrub, but a JUCO transfer, right? And didn't hear anything about him in spring. Didn't hear anything about him from practice, and then just kind of doesn't really get any reps. And then emerges in the UNC game as kind of, making big plays. Yeah, he's
I mean, if we would have won that game, you would have said he was the hero.
Yes, absolutely. And then today looked head and shoulders better than any other wide receiver on the team. That is flummoxing.
And can I add to the flummoxing? Just a little bit of context. You're aware of this for sure, but also Michael Redding did not suit up today. I don't know what the story is behind that, but he did not play today. So you sit there and you go, are some of these Colby Young snaps like supposed to be Redding snaps? Are they supposed to be Jacoby George snaps? Like some of these catches that he's making, these great plays. I'm like, was that supposed to be one where, like, if George and Redding were 100% that they would have been in, would they have made that catch? Maybe, I don't know. But Colby Young is making the most out of the opportunities he's been given, and I love that for him.
Yep.
He's playing his way onto the field. And we talked about this last week. I'm sick of this green tree practice warrior shit where guys that work out and yell the loudest when they lift weights are seeing the field. Meanwhile, this might have been a typo by ESPN, but I was reading the box score, and it looked like it said Tay Williams had 2 fumble recoveries. I don't know if that's right or wrong. Obviously, I know the first one from the first drive, but it said 2. And so I was sitting there, I'm going, this kid has a nose for the ball. He's always around the football. You know, why are the gamers not playing in the games?
That is the existential crisis of Miami Hurricanes football.
There's your flummox.
Yeah, and it's just every year we have it. I mean, I guess other teams have it too. I know Tennessee fans would say that about Alvin Kamara. I know Florida fans would say that about Dameon Pierce last year. But we have our fair share. I mean, if you look at the Canes that are successful in the NFL right now, a lot of them were guys that didn't really get maybe the usage or the burn that they should have while they were here. Gus Edwards comes to mind.
Folks on the timeline are saying that Colby Young is this year's version of Greg Rousseau.
Yeah.
Like a guy who just definitely looks the part, has an NFL caliber like body and physique, clearly has the technical skills to play the game well. And then why was he buried on the depth chart? And then he comes into the games and starts. Greg Rousseau almost led the nation in sacks. And then here we got Colby Young making one-handed catches and touchdowns as if he's always been there.
Yeah. So I just got a text from the booth. AB's hitting me up with he's on his computer. Give me the research. So he said Colby didn't get to campus until late, committed in June, and then must have taken him a little bit to get acclimated. So that makes a little more sense. But man, and to your point about, should these snaps be going to Michael Redding or to Jacoby George?
Like, would they be? Yeah, would they be? I mean, if they were healthy, would they be?
I'll tell you what, I will throw a tantrum if they are in the future, because they sure as hell belong to Colby Young at this point, right?
Yeah.
Like, just the eye test will tell you. I don't care what anyone else says. The eye test tells me that Colby Young is our best receiver right now, absolutely. Hands down. And, I mean, he has the frame, he has and the performance is there too. Like you watch it, he looks dominant, his stats are good. I don't care what people say. He needs to start every game for the rest of the season. I don't care who he gets bumped out of. Put him at the top of the depth chart. Him and Xavier Restrepo, to me, are the only wide receivers that have shown that they are good.
Yeah. Man, I really would have liked – I want to see Brinson play more. I really want to see Brinson play more because he's long and he can, make some good cuts. He's got good footwork, man. And he can catch. He's got good hands too, but he's got very strong footwork as well. Makes great cuts in and out of the defense. And so I'd like to see him getting more opportunity. I just don't know, obviously, whatever is going on in practice every week. I don't know what's happening that the coaches are not justifying play time for him.
Well, I mean, I think our trust of coaches managing reps through what they see in practice is kind of eroding, based on Avonte Williams and Colby Young. But I agree with you with Romello Brinson. Like
Basaint today, him as well. Basaint made that huge, spectacular tackle on the opening kickoff to bury them. I mean, Basaint was he had that big, huge hit that was so big of a hit that people were like, "Oh, is that targeting?" Like,
Yeah, I wouldn't mind. I mean, we have, at least if you go by recruiting stars, we have plenty of talent in the wide receiver room. But, just the development, and this has been a long-standing issue. It's been at least 4 or 5 years where, the wide receiver room has just kind of perplexed the fan base in the sense that, we have 4-star kids, highly rated, highly recruited 4-star kids. We've even
not
had
like the fringe,
kid.
Sometimes the fringe 3s, like you're at a 4, but you're like right at the line. Like these are 4 fringe 5-stars sometimes.
Yes. And we even had a 5-star in the wide receiver room for the last 3 years. And, it's crazy that we're getting KJ Osborne coming in from Buffalo. I mean, who knows how many stars he had as a recruit, but I doubt it was more than 3, if he went to Buffalo. And
Rambo, I mean, he's from Oklahoma, obviously, but people had kind of written him off because of the injury, I think it was. But why are the transfers doing more?
it frustrates me is that you are injecting new blood into the wide receiver room, and they immediately come in and look like the man amongst boys. Like KJ Osborne showed up from a small program in Buffalo and was immediately the grown man in the wide receiver room, and was a leader in the locker room, was a leader on the field, and it's just like, why, like, why is Buffalo's best player also our best player? Like, that's weird,
That's
and
tough.
then why is a guy who is leaving Oklahoma, and Oklahoma's been good, but why is it that he felt like he needed to seek out more opportunity, and then he comes to Miami and has our best
Sets
wide
a
receiver
record.
season of all time?
Yeah.
Like, it's perplexing. I don't know what's going on in the wide receiver room. Obviously, we've had 3 coaches in that span of what was the guy
The
that went
last
to
several years.
Penn State? What was his name? Dan Enos's dude. I can't think of what his name was. But yeah, we've had like 3, maybe 4 wide receiver coaches in that time span, and none of them can get it right, man. So hopefully, Josh Gaddis can do something when he has a little more time, but I don't know.
I'm really
I
hoping
don't
for
know, man.
development. We need some development because there is just you said it yourself. I mean, why would KJ Osborne be able to come in and immediately be the man amongst boys from little old Buffalo?
Yeah.
Like it's not supposed to be that way. So
Yeah, well, and if Colby Young proves to be that, I mean, he's from Lackawanna College.
who
He's a
cares?
JUCO
Yeah,
kid. Yeah, he's from New York.
baller.
Yeah, but like that's the thing is, if we're parroting this at the end of the season, then why is it that a JUCO kid comes into our locker room and is the guy in the
Yeah,
wide receiver room? It's stupid, and it's stupid that it's happened 3 times in 4 years.
yeah. And I do want to like kind of contextualize this a little bit. We are aware that it is Mario's first year. It's like his,
Yeah,
first time with his with the program as the head coach,
for sure.
and so yeah, we do want to have those adjustments be made. And I'm giving him a pass because it's the first year. You're gonna have that kind of thing a little bit naturally.
Yeah,
But if we're still in year 3, 2, like end of year 2, getting into year 3 of the Mario Cristobal era, and it's still happening that way, that is problematic, I feel.
yeah. Yeah, so let's talk more big picture. I want to zoom out now. I'm pulling up the schedule right now for the rest of the season. So our final 6 games, we have home versus Duke next week, on the road at Virginia, home versus FSU, at Georgia Tech, at Clemson, home versus Pitt. Um, if you would have asked me in the first half, I would tell you like we could go 4-2, you
Yeah.
know, and that's a 7-5 season. My wife is clowning me through the window. Now I'm not sure. Pitt, FSU, Clemson all seem like games that are easily, a loss.
I need to see how Florida State and Clemson do tonight before I really feel,
Yeah.
any kind of strong way about that schedule. But yeah,
Yeah.
like you said, 4-2 doesn't really do us a whole lot of favors,
Yeah,
and 4-2 is better than I think we'll do probably as of right now. 4-2 is
yeah.
better than I think maybe 3-3. I'm thinking 3-3.
I'm thinking 3-3 as well, and that we're talking 7-5, 6-6 at that point,
Yeah,
which is really unfortunate. I think Mario really needed to do better in his first year. There's no excuses on our schedule to go 6-6. There's just not.
yeah, 100%. Yeah,
And I guess I'm trying to think of the right way to put this because people are so reactionary on social media. Um, there's no excuses to go 6-6. It's a really terrible look for Mario Cristobal. However, that I'm fine with him, and we're stuck with him for 5 years anyway. So like it's meaningless to even talk about, is he
yeah,
the wrong? It's meaningless to talk about having a different coach in here. So I'm not even
yeah.
going to waste my breath on it. We don't have the money to be like, here's $70 million to go away.
Yeah, certainly not.
We can't afford that. There's no way. So how are you feeling moving ahead of this game? Like going into this back half of the schedule where we have three teams that have been recently ranked, and then, UVA, Duke, and Georgia Tech.
So I can tell you that regarding the Florida State game, again, I need to see how they play against Clemson tonight before I'm feeling any kind of way about that. I think we lose to Clemson either way. If Florida State beats Clemson or if Clemson beats Florida State, no matter what, I do think we're losing to Clemson. How well Florida State plays tonight against Clemson will determine my feelings regarding that game. Pitt's lost some players, yes, but they're still no slouch.
Yeah.
I think we beat Duke. Yeah, I mean, but I like I said, I would not be surprised at all if we end up going 3-3. I would not be surprised at all if we go 3-3 down that stretch, which puts us at, what did we say, 7-5, right? No, that'd be 6-6.
6-6.
So if we go 4-2, that would mean Clemson and then another one. I don't know.
Do you think there's a chance that we go 2-4?
No, we got to go 3-3. I can't. Oh, Jesus, I can't in good conscience say 2-4. That's craziness. That would be craziness. If we go 2-4, I have no. We'll be. If we go 2-4, that's what? Then that's 5-7, and we miss a bowl game, huh?
Yeah, and I'm looking at Virginia. So I guess Virginia got beat up by Duke pretty good. So probably would. I guess Duke. What's their record? They were 4-1. What are they?
Who'd you say we have? We have Georgia Tech, right?
Yeah, Georgia Tech, Duke, and Virginia.
I think we beat them. I think we beat those three for sure. So, now, Florida State, I don't know about. Clemson, I don't feel good about. I think Clemson probably beats us.
So listen to this though. Duke is quietly having a decent season. They're 4-2 right now.
Mm-hmm.
They beat Temple 30-0. They beat Northwestern on the road by 2 scores. They beat some college that I don't even recognize their logo. One of their losses is at Kansas this year. They lost by 8. Kansas.
Oh, that's a good loss. That's a decent loss.
Yeah, on the road as well. They beat Virginia by 21 points, 3 touchdowns, and then a loss on the road at Georgia Tech by 3. So Duke is 4-2. They play UNC today. It looks like that Georgia Tech game was on the road and overtime.
So how are we feeling if UNC blows the doors off of Duke?
I think I'd feel like we have a good shot if UNC blows the doors off of Duke. However, if that game is tight, well, dude, okay, so I'm looking at Georgia Tech's schedule though. I'm not sure they're terrible either. So their losses, they got blown out, 31-point loss to Clemson. Okay,
Clemson, that's fine. I remember that one.
And then they beat some WCU. Probably, I don't know who that is.
Western Carolina, maybe?
Yeah, perhaps. Then a loss to Ole Miss, 42-0. Okay, so they've lost to Clemson, Ole Miss. Then loss on the road at UCF by 17 points.
And UCF is looking good, though. UCF is looking nice. So that's not a bad loss losing to UCF anymore.
Well, and then the following week, Georgia Tech beat Pitt on the road.
Dang, man. It's really hard to say. I'd love to say, I'd love to be able to speak more confidently. I felt that as of week 6, we would be talking about a more technically sound football team, not necessarily a well-oiled machine, but not a team that's struggling with the offensive line, struggling with penalties, struggling with the run game. I kind of thought that the run game was going to be the least of our concerns. I know we've got some hits. I know we've got some injuries. Yes, that is correct, but there's still talent, in that room, and you really do expect more out of some of these guys.
I have to admit, though, after looking at this, I feel good about Virginia.
Yeah. You feel decent about – you got to feel decent about Duke. I mean, I do think Carolina beats Duke today, but
we'll see. I mean, now after looking at those schedules, I mean, I haven't watched either team play, so I'm just looking off of box scores, but –
yeah,
man, I mean, let's be honest for a second here. Both Duke and Georgia Tech have a better box score or schedule. Like, if you just are looking at wins, that's a better win.
Quality Duke wins versus quality losses.
Yeah, they both have more quality wins than we do and more quality losses than we do.
Yeah, better quality losses as well.
Yeah, so I mean, if you're just going off of paper,
It's hard to feel very confident. Yeah, I
I
know what you
think
mean.
if we weren't being biased and we were going off paper, 1 in 5 should be in the conversation. But I don't want to go there.
Yeah, no, I
But
can't. I
yeah,
can't say 1 in 5. That would be awful. I'm not saying 1 in 5. I'd say 5-1 before I say 1 in 5. I'll tell
yeah.
you that.
I do have to say though that I do think 2 and 4 needs to be in the conversation though, just based on that stuff. However, we have seen this before. It happens all the time in football. Is we could be like we're only halfway through the schedule. By the time we wrap up, and let's say 6 weeks from now, we are doing this Pitt game. We're doing the post game for Pitt. We could be talking about an entirely different football team.
Yeah.
So I don't want to get too ahead of myself. I don't want to rope you into my opinions, but
Listen, I said before the season, I said 9-3, and I said the losses were going to be A&M, Clemson, and an ACC team.
yeah,
And so right now we've lost to A&M, we've lost to UNC, and
yeah,
Clemson's not looking so good right now.
yeah,
So if we end up running the table the rest of the way, I will be right.
yeah. I said 8.5 wins. It. I mean, being totally honest, I wanted to predict 10-2. For the same reasons I predicted 10-2 last year. It's just stupid with the talent that we have that my every part of me besides the trauma of being a Hurricanes fan wanted to say 10-2, but just my rule was like 8-4. Like just say 8-4. So I'm saying I
Until
said
proven otherwise.
Yeah, I said 8.5 wins, and it looks like that might be 2 or 3 wins too high. Which is horrible. So I guess let's talk about bright spots though. Before we wrap up, I have a tendency to get really pessimistic. That's who I am
Yes.
as a fan. Um,
Wesley
so
Bassett looks the part. Looks the part, man. He looks so good. Very strong plays today.
yep, I 100% agree. So we'll count him as one. Give me 2 other things, and it could be anything. Doesn't have to be a person. It could be an idea. It could be a pattern. Just anything that gives you hope for the rest of the season. 2 more bright spots for me.
Yeah, I would say that we have to be happy with the special teams unit, Borogalis and Headley. Headley had a great day punting, and Borogalis went 4 for 4 today, 2 field goals, 2 PATs.
Yep.
That's 8 points. We won by 6. You know what I'm
Yep.
saying? That's right there. That's the swing in the game right there.
Yep.
Headley had a bunch of great punts. So I would say special teams, I'm encouraged about that. And I'm going to say this is like pending. I need to see a little bit more, but
Yeah.
the linebackers looked okay today. Linebackers
Yep.
looked decent today.
Yep.
Flag made a bunch of very good plays.
Yep.
And some guys, even though Flag might not have the most natural ability, some guys have this innate sense of being in the right place at the right time. You might call it luck, but when you're in the right place at the right time all the time, that's a skill.
Yep.
Flag seems to have that innate sense, that sixth sense, that ability. And Bassett looks like a stud. So the linebackers look better too. So I feel confident linebackers look to be moving in the right direction.
Yep.
And special teams, not a concern as it had been in years past with punting and kicking, just inconsistencies.
Yep. And so linebackers were going to be one of mine for sure. Going into the season, they were something I just parroted all over and over and over and over again. I was like, what are the linebackers going to look like? I feel horrible. In terms of my confidence level, I did not have a lot of confidence about the linebacker unit coming into this season. Credit to Charlie Strong. Credit to Corey Flagg, Wesley Bassett, as you mentioned. I think they're able to, their ability to solidify themselves at this point in the season. They look really good. I'm not super worried about them going forward. I'm going to try to give Josh Gaddis the benefit of the doubt on the first half today. We talked last week, and you had said for where we are as a football team, that losing to UNC the way that we did, not a terrible outcome, right? UNC looks pretty good.
What was it? Was the final score was like 20? What did they have? It was I'm drawing a blank on the final score. They didn't score a lot of points. And
Yeah.
if you would have told me that was going to be the amount of points that they would score before the game, I would have said, "Oh,
Yeah.
we're winning." I would
Yeah.
have said we're winning that.
Yeah, and
Offense just didn't do it.
yeah, and but just the fact that Gaddis has kind of switched up the scheme a little bit. He's got Tyler Van Dyke looking more comfortable. Our wide receivers are looking better than they did 4 weeks ago. All of that gives me some hope. It might just be a little glimmer, It might be a little Green Lantern on the other side of the bay, to make a Great Gatsby reference.
Right.
But it's there, in my opinion. The fact that Gaddis has shown some flexibility, like that has been something that has plagued the Hurricanes for the last decade and a half, was having coaches that were inflexible about their philosophies. So the fact that Josh Gaddis is switching things up, making Tyler Van Dyke more comfortable, hopefully by the end of this year, he will have a better grasp on our personnel, on our offense, and we will look how we should, right? We will look like a better reflection of the talent on the roster. Lastly, I don't know if I have a third one. Can I say I'm just happy that we didn't lose?
Man, yeah, that I would say, of course, any win is better than any loss. A bad, ugly win is better than a pretty loss.
Yeah.
And so that's great. I do have to shout out Cam Kinchens, dude. He made a lot of great plays today. He is a man out there on the field.
Yep.
Very strong, proper form tackling. Excellent. I'd love to see James Williams. He's always looking to make big plays. He always wants to hit the home run, and that's fine. I wish he didn't gamble as much, but he's making great plays too. Like, what else could you really say apart from that? He's making strong plays. He puts himself in a bad position every now and again.
Yep.
But that's because he's looking for the home run ball. Sometimes it works out, sometimes it doesn't.
Yep. Okay. Any last thoughts? I guess I talk about it all the time. But I hope next time we hire a coach, we will go for a guy that is X's and O's based. Just watching what Josh Heupel's doing at Tennessee, watching what Lincoln Riley is doing at USC.
Yeah.
I'm starting to wonder if the whole disciplinarian, alpha male style head coach in college football is becoming antiquated before our eyes.
Yeah.
So that's something that I'm going to pay attention. I'm a history major, so that's the type of stuff. That's the way that my brain works, right? Is are we watching the alpha male disciplinarian of years past? Is that going by the wayside, and we are now seeing the new archetype of college football head coaches being a guy that just beats you in chess, no matter what pieces he's playing with, every single week. So
I think we touched on this a little bit last week too, and I would definitely echo that sentiment. Yeah. And I think what I said last week was we're getting away from because a lot of these kids are smart now. These kids are smarter now than they've ever been before. They have more access to information than ever in history. And so they're not trying to run through a brick wall for a coach. They're trying to get the coach that teaches them how to go around the brick wall.
Yeah. Yeah. And
without killing themselves. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Right. It's no longer, it's no longer like a fight to the death, a one-on-one fight to the death anymore. That's not football anymore. It's it's the space and speed and all that type of stuff. It's the scheme, right?
Yep.
Football is becoming more scheme based as analytic stats become more pervasive. You can get computers to do all types of stuff on tendencies and models, efficiency, all that stuff. I'm actually really into that when it comes to basketball. Not really into it when it comes to football. I don't understand it, but I imagine there's good crossover there. So we'll see, man. I mean, maybe 5 years we'll be here talking about who the new X's and O's guys on the market are. But I hope not, because that'll be a long 5 years.
Yeah. But dude, yeah, definitely excited for next week. Who do we have next week? I'm drawing a
We
blank
have
on this.
Duke next week at
Duke,
12:30
you said that.
Eastern.
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, I forgot. That one's on Cartoon Network.
Yes. We're gonna
Cause
get the
I gotta
Nickelodeon
tell
slime
you,
cam.
Miami did not do anything today to
Yeah.
earn like getting on ESPN or whatever the case
Yeah.
may be.
Honestly, I hope it's on Cartoon Network because I'm having to use like streams from shady websites and they aren't working. So I'm only able to see about 60% of the game. So
Jesus.
I really hope that we're good enough to be on cable TV next week because
Right.
out here in Utah, I think people are looking at Canes versus Duke and they're like,
Yeah.
not
Tough
putting that on
sledding
TV. Yeah.
for sure.
Okay, man. Well, until next week, thanks everyone for tuning in. Petrie,
Yeah.
thanks for joining us. Excited to have you for the rest of the season and
Yep.
beyond. So,
Happy to be on.
yep.
Go Canes.
Go Canes. Take care, everyone.